Well, I could glibly say, yes, they're right on time, no problems. In actual fact, there's a usual raft of problems, but that's what running a festival is about. It's making a list of the problems and knocking them off one by one.
And it's almost like it becomes part of the territory.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. It gives you a sense of achievement when you manage to sort out one or two of the outstanding things.
Just tell us exactly what are the dates for the Jazz Festival?
It's July 18 to 14, but perversely we start on the 17th with a pre-festival party. It's grown by an extra day. That'll be at the Blue Piano with a band from Sota Grande in Spain called New Magnolia Jump Band. And then it starts, the launch is the next day officially at the Crown Plaza and runs for 185 performances over 10 days in 84 venues, something like 40 hours of jazz every day. We actually deliberately try and take the music to where people don't normally expect to find music, because that's where you spread the borders, you get people interested in the music. There's nothing wrong with the music is great, but folks these days don't get that much opportunity to experience the music involuntarily. If they look for it, they can find it on YouTube, etc. But if it was pervading the airwaves on the radio all the time, or you picked up the local newspapers, you could read about the musicians, then you'd be automatically sucked in, as were previous generations. But the media has changed. It's surprising how many folk these days haven't actually experienced live music close up. They think maybe a live music is a DJ playing recorded music, and you and I might laugh about that, but sadly it's the case. And people who innocently stumble across events in the festival are often amazed at the sheer dexterity, the sheer quality and the ability of people to play. It's to see someone actually producing music from a piece of metal or a piece of wood is often a surprise to people, and it's great. It's important we surprise people. It's important we take the music to not just to new generations, but to the middle generations as well, who've been often deprived of the possibility of experiencing real good live music. It started off in 1984. I got rather fed up with seeing some public funded events which were supposed to be to do with jazz, which were sometimes silly, sometimes extremely silly. It came to a head when I saw a trombonist was on tour with a jazz services promoted tour, and he played in the Cannonball on Adderley Street, which was another great jazz pub, by the way. And he played the second half with his left foot in a bucket of water with his trouser leg rolled up to his knee. This was art and culture. I thought, I've got to do something. I can't just sit and watch this happening. So I put together a jam session which we staged in Cannon Hill Park of the 12, in my opinion, best British jazz players at the time. It was an all-star jam session. It wasn't just a wild blow. We got the orchestrations done. We had head arrangements. We separated the 12-piece into two separate front lines, and it was a really great event. We sold 850 tickets. We recorded it live for Big Bear Records, which is my record company, and we got the Sunday Times Jazz Album of the Year. At that event was Malcolm Powell from Mitchells and Butlers and Stephen Carter from the Holiday Inn, which was then what the Crown Plaza is now called. And they said, let's do this again next year, but let's do it more days. So we went for a meeting with Brian Bird, a councillor, and they sort of said, why don't you do a jazz festival next year? I hadn't thought about it, so okay. We did a 6-day festival. We got some funding from Mitchells and Butlers. City Council rang me up and said, this jazz festival you're doing? I thought, some licensing problem. I said, do you need some funding for it? Different climate. And that's how it all started. We did 6 days. The next year we went to 10 days, and we stayed there ever since. We normally start the first Friday of every July. This year, once every 4 years, because of the World Cup football, we put it back to avoid the football. This year we've got 84 venues, I think it is, and 185 shows. We've got bands coming in from 12 countries. I can probably remember some of them. In fact, we've got 3 countries, European countries, who are funding their artists to come and play in Birmingham. The countries, are paying for it. There's Luxembourg, something called Music LX, which is the government's music promotion arm. There's a company called Czech Dreams, which is based in Prague and handles overseas touring for Czech artists. And we've got the Lithuanian government, who are funding all the costs for a 4-piece band from Vilnius in Lithuania to come and play in Birmingham for 5 shows. Wow. And I think it's great that other countries, they understand the value of Birmingham and our festival. And they pay for them, they want their artists there. And we've also got Hungarians and 2 Spanish bands, 5 American acts, French act. And so we've got artists from 12 countries. Mike and I sit down and we drew up a wish list of what we'd like to have in the festival, and he goes away and books the bands for Robin. He's also got Eve Salis, who's a good guitar player, American. He's got her this year as well. So Mike's a very astute businessman. He's built a hotel, this rock and roll club in Bilston, he's built a hotel there. So he accommodates the band. That saves him having to buy suites at Sprauncy hotels. It is the Birmingham International Jazz and Blues Festival, but we go throughout the region. We've got shows in Wolverhampton and Coventry and Warwick Castle, places like this. This venue in it's a great venue. It shouldn't really be there. So illogical that somebody should invest time and money in building a 700 capacity rock and roll club in the heart of the Black Country in Bilston. But he has, and he's done it, and it works. And with 700 capacity, at a £25 ticket, you can afford to pay top dollar. Well, Botanical Gardens is particularly nice, unless it rains too much, but it's still nice. We've got some interesting bands there. There's a new element of jazz developing now called electro swing, and one of the two leading stylists in this genre are from Birmingham, called Electric Swing Circus, and it's great stuff. I'm not sure what they do. I've heard them 3 or 4 times, and I don't know quite what they do, but it's fabulous, wonderful. It's based on some old orchestrations of bands like Jimmy Lunsford and Fletcher Henderson, but they really updated it, and the 2 girl front singers are dynamite, and the show's tremendous. They got a regular gig here in Birmingham every month. They sell out. So we thought, let's take it to a wider audience, a jazz audience, and we got that in the Botanical Gardens. It can be great. And the other show in the Botanical Gardens that's a major show is the Magnolia Sisters from Monroe in Louisiana. Monroe's the capital of Cajun country. It's called Cajun cooking and Cajun culture and Cajun music. And Anne Savoy, who's the leader of the Magnolia Sisters, is the probably world #1 authority on Cajun music. And she's going to be here with her own band playing in our Botanical Gardens in the middle of the Jazz Festival. Her daughter is Sarah Savoy, and she's got a band called the Francadians because she lives in Paris, and she's got 2 Frenchmen and 2 Cajuns from Monroe. And we had her here 2 years ago in the festival. That was a funny one. We had her on stage at Star City, and she did a cooking demonstration of Cajun cooking. And while it was simmering, or whatever food does, she played a set, coming out and stirring it and going back to playing guitar again. It was a great show. So she said, why don't you book my mum? I said, well, yeah, love to. It all happened because Lisa Travers phoned me. She's the daughter of Brian Travers, UB40's saxophone player, who knows me. And he suggested that she call me, and she did. We started talking about bringing the blue piano into the festival. She came to our office and she looked around and saw this collection of photographs lying around the office. She said, let's have an exhibition. So it was her idea, not mine. So we've got our opening party here with a band from Soto Grande. We've got 5 or 6 shows here during the festival, including one of the bands I think is going to be the hit of the festival. It's the strangely named Pepper and the Jellies from a village outside of Rome in Italy. But the girl is dynamite. She really is a stunner. If you close your eyes, you think you're listening to someone like Ma Rainey or Bessie Smith from the 1930s. She really doesn't ape it, doesn't mimic it. It's her. She really has got that sort of 1930s feel. And I think she's going to be one of the stars of the festival. So, as a backdrop to all that, Lisa said, let's have a photographic exhibition. So we have a resident photographer, having had him for 8 years now, 9 years, called Merlin Dalaman. He's from Holland. He's half Dutch. He lives in Noord-Brabant, and he works for the Rotterdamse Courier, which is a major daily paper. He's twice won the Silver Camera Award in Holland for the best documentary photographer. And we've collected his photographs over the years, and they're all his photographs. And he has a unique view of Birmingham, things that you and I might not even look at because we walk past it every day. He stops and sees things. And I think one of his successes as a documentary photographer is his eye for detail. So often you look at his photograph and you see the subject, then maybe look over their shoulder or behind them and there's something else going on. He likes telling a story. And we've got all his photographs here. And he's coming to the festival this year, so we launched the photographic exhibition, which is called Birmingham, the Land of Jazz, because for 10 days every year, it is the land of jazz. He will be holding a session here on the 21st of July, where he talks about his photography in the background and answers questions about how he did what he did. So it'll be great to have him here, A, to do photographs for this year's festival, but also to look back at his earlier work. There's many and varied. We've tried to put it together across several years to give a broader slice. Frankly, it could have been a 500 photograph exhibition, but it's 41, which is quite a lot. Running through, there's a bit of a theme going. He did a series of portraits of visiting musicians, a lot of them foreign.
To the jazz festival.
Yeah. In what he saw as typical Birmingham venues. We'll see those. There's also some great characters, some of them much missed. Some of the leading figures in jazz who we were lucky enough to have at the festival. But most of all, I think it's a chronicle of Birmingham enjoying itself at Jazz Festival time. You see a different Birmingham during the Jazz Festival. It's very international. You hear lots of foreign languages being spoken. We get visitors from all over the country and from all over Europe, and international visitors every year. Well, we have hotel deals. We have really cheap hotel deals in nice hotels. So people come in, they pay a really low price hotel. They don't pay anything for the shows, because there's only about 9 of the shows at 185 are ticketed. And it's a good deal. Where else can you come and enjoy a nice city, some good shops, some great music, and some wonderful company? Some of the after-hours sessions in the hotel are tremendous. You get fans from all over the world, and musicians from all over the world. It's like being in Hong Kong, I feel. Last year we achieved nearly 96,000 people.
Wow.
To put it in perspective, that should mean people who attend shows, because some people attend 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 shows, but added together, people who saw shows was a total of 96,000. Many of them fly in, and Birmingham's airport now is serving a lot more destinations than it was. And this year we're serving China for the first time. And next year, I believe we're going to have China more deeply involved in our festival. We've got a new rail hub, we're ready by next year. But what I love, there's one family who come from Salford in Manchester. They come down by canal boat every year.
Wow.
It takes them 5 days to get here.
That's an amazing story.
They moor up in Gas Street Basin for 10 days, then with the 5 days back, and that's their summer holiday. And there's another lovely lady from Brighton who meets a school teacher daughter. She was in Brighton. Her daughter teaches in North Wales, and they spend a week together here in Birmingham, just having their annual get-together, but with the Jazz Festival as a backdrop. It's great. I love human aspects of the festival. It's nice when you can see that it's helping to enrich people's lives a little bit. One of them has to be a really nice photograph of a band the band I mentioned before, called New Orleans Jump Band from Sota Grande in Spain. They come all the way from Spain here. They played a really swanky golf hotel in Spain. When people play Birmingham, they find themselves playing sometimes in supermarkets or on trains. We have musicians on the Marylebone to Birmingham train last year, where they play on canal boats, they play in zoo, in a castle, they play shopping centres, they play in street corners. So it's, unless they've got the right mental approach, it can be a bit of a shock to the system. But New Orleans Jump Band always revel in, and there's this one photograph of them playing in Tesco.
Which Tesco was that?
Five ways.
5 ways,
yeah,
wow.
to one small, distinctly not impressed young girl. So I'm sure they had better audiences than that. It's a lovely photograph. It really captures something. I like the one he's got of Herb Geller. I first encountered Herb Geller when I was very, very young. He featured on the great Clifford Brown album called Jam Session, which was really Clifford's record. But there's a fabulous ballad version of Bess You Is My Woman now by an alto player I hadn't heard of, and it was Herb Geller. And over the years, Herb's got to play with everybody. He played with all the major names. He was a legend. And we got him here to play 5 shows in Birmingham.
Wow.
One of my heroes. Oh, there's a wonderful one of Art Thiemann. Art Thieman's a funny guy. I shouldn't say that. He's a very nice guy, but he's strange. When he was at university, Cambridge University, in the 60s, he was in the Cambridge University Jazz Band, which won a national jazz band competition. As a result, he played with Long John Baldry, alongside people like Elton John and Rod Stewart. And when he was sort of 20, 21 as a student, he was playing with these legends. And then he graduated and became an orthopaedic surgeon. And he became one of the country's leading orthopaedic surgeons at the Radcliffe Infirmary. And I knew him for years, and so many jazzmen I knew who got the children broke their wrist or something, they'd travel all the way to Oxford to see Art, because Art's a jazzer and he'll look after us. And he retired when he was 65, and he's gone back on the jazz trail, and he's playing as freshly and as quirkily. He's not a straight-ahead player. He's got a really unusual imagination. He comes at things from a totally different viewpoint. It's always fresh, always exciting. Whenever he sees me in the audience in Birmingham, he says, "Oh, Jim's here, I'm going to play Hot House," which is a Charlie Parker song. And he does it differently every time. He's done it 5 or 6 times, and never once he's done it the same twice. And he's in several photographs here. There's one beautiful one, where's another saxophone player, Robert Fowler, nice player, playing a solo, and Art's in the background grinning with such delight. And I think it just captures the pleasure of jazz. And another picture with him and Val Wiseman laughing insanely at something. And when you see the photo, you'll understand what I mean. But they can't have forgotten what they're laughing at, but they have. Not one of them, they won't tell me, or they don't want to, or they can't
pretend that they can't remember.
That's
or maybe they can't remember.
They're probably laughing at me and they don't want to tell me. But it's a great photograph. It's 2 great tenor, but both very different stylistically. Robert Fowler, who's very straight ahead, big-bellied sound, full and cold and Hawkins-like, and the impish Art Thiemann. And it's funny, Art has 2 lives. One of what was mentioned before, he's a very famous orthopedic surgeon, which doesn't sort of show when he's on stage playing tenor saxophone. It's a great moment of Art. Art's a great enthusiast about everything. He's totally involves himself what's on around him, and it shows in his face there. It's a nice shot. Yeah, it's one of the back-to-backs on Her Street. It's Birmingham was very sensibly restored, parts of old Birmingham like that. I wish we could do more, but it takes you right back to the 1900s. And pictured there is a Spanish saxophone player, you probably guessed that, called Enrique Oliver Gomez. It's only in recent years, maybe that's 10 or 12 years, that we've begun to realise that Spain is actually producing some really great musicians. It all started here when we brought over the Paris-Barcelona Swing Connection, which were an 8-piece, 4 people from Barcelona and 4 people from Paris. And they were really, really rocking. And that sort of opened our eyes to Spain, so we started looking more carefully. And we quite quickly after that developed a relationship with a guitar player from Barcelona called Pere Soto, who was a big name in Spain, a big name in Mexico, and totally unknown anywhere else. Well, we brought him with his band called Django's Castle, which is a bit of a giveaway. It shows he's a Reinhardt fan. And they did really well over 3 years in Birmingham, so much so we brought them back 3 years ago and did a live album. We recorded live on first-class digital equipment at the Hotel de Van in Church Street. And
you recorded that?
For Big Bear Records, for our record label, but it was distributed in 14 countries and all recorded in Birmingham with a Spanish artist, which is great. But there are a lot of really good emerging Spanish players. Interestingly, Berkeley School of Music, which is a famous jazz school of music, has just opened a department in Valencia in Spain. So maybe we could hear a lot more about Spanish players. It's part of that series we mentioned earlier of Situation in Birmingham, graced by visiting musicians. So. And we also made El País with that photograph, which is a daily Spanish newspaper. They did a feature on him having succeeded in Birmingham, and they used that photograph. Wow. I mean, it's probably taken 8 years ago now. I just wonder if that young girl, who must be 15 or something, whatever, I don't know if she remembers that. Hope she does. Hope she sees this and comes and says hello, because she can meet the band again, because they're staying here at Blue Piano for 5 days, and I don't want to make any comment upon her diet, but there's a lot of Cadbury's chocolate in there.
And that was a completely natural picture?
Yeah, she was shopping in the band they're Andalusian. They got no worries, no inhibitions. They just wander around playing to anybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they'd be known to walk into a restaurant after a gig and say, if we play for half an hour, we'll give us some food. They're playing the pre-festival show here, the Blue Piano.
Oh, wow, fantastic.
And they're doing another 7 shows throughout town. And this year they're sponsored by Aldi, the supermarket. They were wearing shirts with Aldi on the back. And brilliant place. The band were playing from Belgium, called the Big Four. Belgium is another tiny country that punches above its weight, not just in football and chocolate and potato chips, but also in jazz. Some great players. I mean, people don't realise this, but Django Reinhardt was from Belgium. He's from Charleroi. Other great Belgian players like Toots Tielemans, in a bunch of Hollywood movies. He's the chromatic harmonica player. Willie Donny, great guitar player. Philippe Catherine, guitar player. Belgium produced some great players. And the big four are tremendous. Well, Debbie Jones comes from Preston in Lancashire. She's quite the best gospel singer this country's ever produced.
Really?
She sings with the One Voice Gospel Choir in Manchester. She featured on an album by EMI called The Greatest Gospel Album Ever. And her own band is stunning. It's called Tipatina. She runs it with a piano player called Justin Randall, who is the best sort of New Orleans-style boogie piano you'll ever hear. And they're playing one night in the festival this year. They're playing on the Grand Terrace at the New Library of Birmingham. And she's stunning. We've got two final shows on the last night. One is her at the library, and the other will be the electric swing band, electro swing at the Botanical Gardens. He looks like a 1950s English film star, like Dirk Bogarde or something. But he's a Sinti gypsy. He can't read, he can't write. He's been playing guitar since he was 3. He's categorically the hottest gypsy guitar player around today. The gypsy traditions of the Sintis are based mainly around the Rosenberg family. He's Nomi Rosenberg, and the Reinhardt family, which there are several Reinhardts extant. And he's the one they all look up to. When he was 15, he played Carnegie Hall, New York, a 3-guitar feature with Les Paul, him, and George Benson. And he was 15. His education may be lacking in some ways. He's got no fear on guitar. He tempos, however fast, doesn't care. Key, however difficult, doesn't mind. He doesn't think about the technique. He just plays beautifully. And he's the brother of Jimmy Rosenberg. A lot of people will tell you Jimmy's the best player and best guitar player in the world. Well, I think there's some justification of that, but I think Nomi's hotter. Nomi's more traditional. He really goes back to that Reinhardt idiom. He does all the hard way. He plays correctly. Everything's correct. He doesn't fake anything. He's a stunning player. And really a nice guy as well. He lives in a village, but in a motorhome in a village. Most of them do. They'll live together. It's south of Eindhoven in Holland. And I mean, it's a different culture entirely. But if you visit them, you hear some great music. He plays with his own second guitarist and double bass player. And when they're playing together, they have these ridiculous jokes. He'll count a song in twice as fast as it should be. And all the guys around, they just laugh and they take it. They don't they say, oh, it's too fast, slow it down. They just do it. And he just key change. He shouts F sharp, bang, and the whole band switching to F sharp like that. No rehearsal, nothing. It's just natural to them. It's a joy. Yeah, it's an absolute joy. First two are Digby Fairweather. He's currently our festival patron. When the festival first launched, festival patron was Humphrey Littleton. He had to do it really because he's one of the people who bullied me in a way into starting the festival. But Humphrey Littleton was our leader in all ways. He was a great trumpet player, band leader, broadcaster, author. And when he died 4 years ago, there was one obvious man to take over, and a man who also was a trumpet player, band leader, author, and broadcaster. It was Digby Fairweather. Totally appropriate because of all those other occupations that he shared with Humphrey Littleton and Digby Fairweather together played on the first session ever of the Birmingham International Jazz Festival. And Digby, apart from being the closest of friends, has been every year on the Jazz Festival ever since. And he's a great ambassador for us. He represents us nationwide. He insists that the Birmingham International Jazz Festival is the best festival in the country, and it's coming from someone as respected as him carries weight. He's doing 6 shows with us this year. In a variety, I mean, some that are in pretty smart places. One of them is in Birmingham markets. He likes to get involved at grassroots level. He likes to see the whites of people's eyes, and he's a great ambassador. Britain has we have a national jazz archive. It's set up near Digby's hometown in Loughton in Essex, and it was set up by Digby. He did all the work, all the lobbying, all the arguments with government officers, and he has got the one national jazz archive in this country. It's there thanks to Digby. He's a good bloke. We were in Paris with King Pleasant Biscuit Boys some years ago. They're playing at a place called La Cave de la Huchette on the left bank of the Seine, and strolling around one night between sets, I stumbled across this one-man band called Bernard Constant. He played bass drum with one foot, hi-hats with the other foot, accordion, And every now and then he'd play accordion one-handed and pick up trumpet or trombone and just play over his rhythm section. And he got 50, 60, 70 people gathered around him, listening to him, and he was stunning. I asked him to come and play in Birmingham. He said, yes, when? Still, whenever it was. He said, are you going to pay me? I said, yes. And he came, and he was sensational. He had a great Gallic charm. I forgot to mention he sings beautifully as well. It was great.
And when was the last time he played the jazz?
Oh, 7 or 8 years ago.
Sure.
I think he found it a bit rough and tumble for him.
Really?
He was totally charming about it, but he didn't seem in a rush to come back. We pay all artists. It's not one of these festivals that some people these days charge artists to audition for them. But to review their tape or their YouTube, they have to pay a fee. We don't do anything like that. We pay all the artists. Musicians Union have been our sponsors now for 26, 27 years, and the Musicians Union wouldn't support us if we weren't doing the job right. And on our board, we have the chairman of the Musicians Union and a district chairman of the Musicians Union. So we're integrated with that. So no way can I believe that they can't know what they were laughing at. My guess is that maybe I fell over and they're laughing at me, but probably not. But it's Ian Bateman and Art Thiemann and Val Wiseman, and the man's carrying a camera, so he must know. So if anyone bumps into those two who are in the festival this year, stop them, buy them a drink, get them to own up what they were laughing at, because I'd like to know. Well, Val's doing a quartet thing in Café Rouge in the mailbox. She's also fronting a show called Lady Sings the Blues, which, nicely enough, started off in 1986, I think, or 87, in Birmingham. It's the whole Billie Holiday songbook through the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. They take the actual Billie repertoire, the actual arrangements, all the solos are improvised, but the arrangements are the same as Billie did with those old recordings with Teddy Wilson in the 1930s and later on with the orchestras of Ray Ellis in the 50s. And it's 2 hours of stunning repertoire, because Billie was the greatest. And this is the closest we're ever going to get to hearing what Billie sounded like live on stage. I'm not going to miss a minute of that. It's in this day and age, you don't know how long such things can go on, because it's an anachronism. It shouldn't really survive today. Here it is playing live at Star City, and it's totally free to get in. I mean, that's a situation that generations to come will look back on and say, well, how could that be? Well, I don't know how it could be, but it is. Star City, free. The most unusual thing about all this is all the acts playing there are concert acts. One would normally pay for a ticket to get to see. This is all free. As you say, it's in Nechells. It's an area that needs to be brought in to the cultural offer of the city, which is one of the reasons we do it there. The other reason is that they're so altruistic out there that they want to have the best. We've had shows. We had Kenny Ball Jasmine playing there. 4 months earlier, they played at Symphony Hall for a £28 ticket, and there they were, free. One of the problems, I think, with it is people don't actually believe it's free. They think there's some catch. But it's free. And another band this year featuring there is Birmingham's finest, King Pleasure and the Biscuit Boys, who launched their career 26 years ago now, playing in the Birmingham International Jazz Festival. Since then, they've gone on to fame, if not fortune. They've toured with B.B. King. They've toured opening the show for the original Blues Brothers band. They've toured with Cab Calloway. They've played every country I can think of. They've done 60, 65 TV appearances. They did 8 shows on Teletubbies, wow, all filmed in Botanical Gardens. And they're a legend. They're a Birmingham band, and they're playing also in Star City. Paul Jones, the BBC presenter, there was a Monday Night Blues show, described them as the hardest act to follow since the parting of the Red Sea. I think he got it right. Well, I sort of met him, at least on record, in the 50s when I bought an album featuring Clifford Brown, who was, probably my favourite trumpet player at the time. And there's a great alto sax solo on it, on a song called Best She's My Woman Now. I'd never heard of Herb Geller, to my shame. And later on, of course, he's played with all the big names. Played Benny Carter, who was his inspiration, and Charlie Parker, Quincy Jones, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Ray Charles, Zoot Sims, Ella Fitzgerald, everybody. But in 2007, we had him here in Birmingham, playing 5 shows in pubs and bars and where everybody else plays in Birmingham. And he played just as committedly as if he were playing in front of 1,000 people. And he was great. He'd sit down after the show and he'd chat to people, and people like me would bore him silly, but he was patient and charming and witty and clever, and one of the absolute greats. He died 2 years ago, aged 85, and he played right up till the end.
Really?
Yeah, right till the end.
And when was his last live performance at the festival?
Birmingham, 87.
Wow. And Jim, to your right, is another favourite feature of mine.
Yeah, trust me to book an open top bus, put musicians on top. But it's July. You've got an excuse. You should stand half a chance in July.
Like a safe bet at the time.
It did in February when we arranged it, but come July, well, that was a rainy year. In fact, in 2012 it rained every day of the Jazz Festival. In 2013, the sun shone every day in the Jazz Festival. So who can tell? This is Becky Bryan. She's from Totnes in Devon. She's known as the Jazzioke Queen. She's a very brave girl, great singer, but she makes a living as a street singer. She goes out to the streets in summer in holiday resorts in Devon. She wears evening gown, tiara, over-the-elbow gloves, and she sings jazz standards, really socking straight down the middle, great jazz songs with great verve and enthusiasm, and makes a good living at it. But now and then, it's hard to get her out of Devon in the summer. That's her payday. But now and then, she, as in this year, she takes a couple of days off and comes to Birmingham. And she's very popular here. She's seen an obvious choice to put on top of the bus. She's playing two shows this year. One's she's playing 4 shows this year. 2 with her own band, and 2 with the All-Star Rhythm section. So she'll be on the jazz trail. One of our national heroes is piano player singer Diz Watson, who really has copped that New Orleans style, piano style down to a T. It's the old Dr. John, Professor Longhair thing. He does all those slimy rumba boogies. He's absolutely brilliant. So much so that in his band at one time, he included Lee Allen, saxophone player from the Fats Domino band. But in the 1980s, the hottest band in London town was Diz and the Doormen. That's him. He called Diz and the Doormen because he was looking around for band uniforms which he couldn't afford, and he found some cinema selling off all its second-hand concierges uniforms, commissionaire's uniforms, and he thought they looked like doormen, so he bought these 7 uniforms and named the band after them, and he was dynamite. But we managed to lure him up to Birmingham every now and then, and he's given way in some ways to the new leaders of the pack where New Orleans is concerned, and that's Tipitina with Debbie Jones and Justin Randall. And when they play together, it's electricity. It's not just 2 generations, it's a couple of generations apart. He's the grand old man who knows it all, and these are the young upstarts who've got all the fire, and they get on very well together. One of these days I'd like to record them together because it's a golden time for this sort of music in this country. Tipitina are playing the festival this year, but he won't be here in body, but he'll be in spirit. Because everything they do, they went to New Orleans this last summer in August, and the New Orleans Times-Picayune newspaper, they dedicated a 3-page feature to Tipitina. And the first question they asked them about what's happening in England is, does Diz Watson still play?
Wow.
So he's known, I mean, his life has been inspired by New Orleans. It's nice that New Orleans knows that. This is Merlin Dolleman's fault. He's totally to blame. He was trying to find typical things of Birmingham. There's one there of Diz Watson in the mailbox. There's other shots in front of Selfridge and things. But this one is a meat market, which I'm not quite sure of the attraction of it, but Simon looks decidedly at home there. Yeah. So if ever he decides to give up playing saxophone, I will suggest an alternative career as a butcher. 30th Birmingham International Jazz and Blues Festival will take place this year from July the 18th to 27th, though quirkily it starts a day earlier than it's supposed to start, with a party here on the 17th at 6 o'clock with a band from Soto Grande in Spain called New Orleans Jump Band. The festival itself runs for 10 days. There's 185 performances, mostly free, the public. We're going to entertain audiences from all over the world. We've got bands from 10 different countries, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So please come along and join us in Birmingham when we have our annual jazz party, and we welcome visitors from all over the world to our fine city. This is the time Birmingham lets its hair down. This is the time Birmingham has its own party, and we ask people to come to visit our city and join us in our annual jazz party.